This is the first of 2 videos on argument. In this video, we will be examining elements of argument in order to be able to develop a clear and strong argument for an essay. To do so, we will look at what is not an argument and what would make a good opening to an argument. An argument is something that is not a statement of fact. Many times, students will know they need a general topic and will come up with something that they think is an argument, but instead end up with something that really does not argue anything. They end up with a statement of fact. So you want to avoid arguments that assert something that is very obvious. For example, Hamlet is the Prince of Denmark and he dies at the end of the play. That's a statement of fact. The French Revolution, which started in 1789, brought about many changes. Child abuse is very frequent in modern industrial society. There is much discussion in Canada today about Aboriginal rights. Let's look more closely at the last example. How could you make it more like an argument? Start off with the same statement about there being much discussion of Aboriginal rights in Canada, but then add something that is not as obvious or not everyone will agree with. So, for example, you could say, there is much discussion in Canada today about Aboriginal rights because Canadians are more aware of the injustices First Nations people continue to face today. An even better argument could be made if the author were to focus on something even more complex. What about something like, although the last residential school closed in the 1980s, the ripple effect of the forced removal of children from their homes is still being felt today and has created a more militant approach to Aboriginal rights. The point here is that you are aiming for an argument that allows you to dig deep into an issue rather than treating a topic in a superficial and descriptive manner. Remember, if all you do is describe an issue, you will not get to the heart of it. There are some tricks to creating a good argument. Think here for a moment. Is this statement true or false? Arguing at cross purposes means that all participants have a clear understanding of the terms central to the argument. What does it mean to argue at cross purposes? If you chose false here, you are correct. When 2 people are debating a point, but they have different understandings of that point, they are arguing at cross purposes. When you are making your argument in a research essay, you must be clear in your own mind about what you are arguing. If you are not, you will not be clear in your essay, and then your reader will not understand what you're trying to say. So to avoid the problem of arguing at cross purposes, you must be very clear as to what you mean. Clarify any ambiguous words, be aware of connotations or the underlying meanings of words, as well as the effect that some words can have on some people. For example, what is a fetus? If you're a biology student, the definition will seem very clear. If, however, you are involved in a discussion of abortion, how a fetus is defined may be different. Do you think of a fetus as an unborn child or a mass of cells? Does it depend on the age of the fetus or something else? In other words, you need to be clear. How about this one? Is this statement true or false? Deductive reasoning is based on general truth or something we all agree on. Here we need to think about the difference between inductive reasoning and deductive reasoning. If you chose true here, you are correct. Deductive reasoning is often used in philosophical debates. Deductive reasoning is a logical process where we start with a shared truth, something that we, in our case Canadian society, agree to be true. We take this agreed upon truth and apply it to a particular case. For example, killing people is always wrong, plus capital punishment involves killing people, therefore capital punishment is always wrong. That's an example of deductive reasoning. What about inductive reasoning? Is this statement true or false? Inductive reasoning is not related to empiricism. If you chose false, you are correct. To understand this question, you need to understand the word empiricism. Empiricism is about numerical evidence. So inductive reasoning is what we think of when we think of detective work or scientific research. Here we start with evidence, whether it is data, documented facts, measurements, or observations, and we come to a conclusion based on that evidence. Being aware of the type of argument you are making will help you to ensure that you include the important details to support your argument, to help you to build your argument in a logical fashion. So now let's look at some examples of opening paragraphs to try to understand what a good argument is. In this first example, what is the writer saying? The film, To Rangoon on a Slave Ship, tells the story of Martin, a teenage runaway on a cargo boat which sails from London to the Far East. On board the ship are two other stowaways, Gumby and Cian, two friends who know nothing about Martin's presence. The ship is called the Narnia. The captain is called Fred Jones. He hates stowaways and is keen to punish them whenever he finds them. Rangoon is in the Far East. The story is set in the early 1900s. Pirates chase the ship at one point. At another time, the ship joins a group of Navy ships sailing off to war in the Pacific. Martin is 19 years old. He is played by Adam Blyth. What is the argument here? Of course, there is no argument in this paragraph. The author has basically described the film. There is no critique or analysis. There is no sense of what the author thinks of the movie. What about this second paragraph? Is it any better? The film To Rangoon on a Slave Ship came out in 1995. It is the best film I have ever seen. Everything about it was splendid. Everybody should see it. Here, rather than describing the movie, the writer has stated an opinion, but provides no evidence to support his or her perspective. Let's take a look at two more examples. In this first one, quote, To Rangoon on a Slave Ship is a recent film directed by Terry Bright. I really like his films because they usually combine a good script with some excellent camera work. His first film, Manhattan by Night, won several prizes at film festivals, and in 1987 another work won him an Oscar for Best Screenplay. Mr. Bright is a Canadian from Ontario. He attended film school in Toronto and was in the graduating class that produced a number of excellent filmmakers, including Alice Jackson and Sue McPherson. I really like all their films. It's a shame that more Canadians don't support Canadian filmmakers by paying more attention to their films. That's why so many good directors go south to the United States. Anyway, Mr. Bright's work is another excellent example of the high-quality work that can be done by Canadians. So what does the author say here? What's the argument? Well, there is an argument here, but it's not really reviewing why the movie is good. The writer shifts focus to an overview of the director's biography. Finally, in this last example, let's read it. To Rangoon on a Slave Ship, a recent adventure film, tells the story of some young stowaways on a trading vessel going to the Far East in the early years of this century. Martin, a young London boy, and two other teenagers, Gumby and Cian, escape from oppressive situations at home by stowing away on the Narnia, a trading vessel bound for exotic places. The ship and the young stowaways encounter all sorts of adventures, but ultimately the story resolves itself happily. The work contains many predictable elements: a wicked captain, some pirates, brave teenagers who help each other, a storm at sea, a mutiny, and so on. These scenes are quite familiar to anyone who has seen or read many sea yarns aimed at a young audience. However, for a number of reasons, particularly the script, the direction, and the acting of the lead characters, this is not just another conventional romantic adventure aimed at the younger set. It is in many ways a mature, amusing, and inventive reworking of a traditional genre, well worth the price of admission even for skeptical adults. So is this paragraph any better? Here the author does include an argument that the movie is a mature, amusing, and inventive reworking of the traditional genre, and provides supporting evidence for his or her argument. So of the four, this would be the best opening to introduce an argument saying why the movie is a good one. Let's look at another couple of examples. Which thesis statement is better? So the first one. Two education researchers at UOIT, Fritz and Simmons, conducted 6 different studies of the effects of lack of sleep on children's learning. They concluded that it is a serious problem in modern society. And the second one. The study by Fritz and Simmons, 2 education researchers at UOIT, which concluded that lack of sleep among children is a serious problem, contains significant inconsistencies which produce very misleading conclusions. So let's compare the two. The first one makes no real argument. It is descriptive. The second one includes an argument in the underlined part of the sentence that the study has inconsistencies and misleading conclusions. Therefore, the second one is better as a thesis statement or argument. The next step, of course, is to support your argument with concrete and specific evidence. In this video, we have introduced the idea of argument, focusing on inductive and deductive reasoning, and how to integrate an argument into an opening paragraph. Thank you for listening.